Haribo, dear devotees. Доброе утро, приятные. Good morning. Hare Krishna. Welcome to Bhagavatam class. Let me just check the Vaishnav calendar. Anything happening? No, it's a regular Saturday. But Kartik will end soon. When does Kartik end? Does anybody know? November 26th, I think. All right. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Hari Pijannava Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Girivaradari Gopinannava Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Jana Jana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Jana Jana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Punjabi Hari Jaya Punjabi Hari Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Punjabi Hari Punjabi Hari Dev Radhamaya Jaya Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Punjabi Hari Gopinannava Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Girivaradari Gopijanavalava Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Yasodeva Jaya Braja Jaya Jaya Yasodeva Jaya Braja Jaya Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Punjati Jaya Punjati Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Punjati Jaya Jaya Punjabi Jaya Madhava Jaya Punjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Punjabi Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Shri Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Damodar Ki Jai and their loving pastimes down by the forest groves on the bank of the Jamuna Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramhamsa Brivajakacharya Astottara Satta Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramhamsa Brivajakacharya Astottara Satta Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi Haribo Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Devamrita Swaminita Namane Pachai Purvaraksham Ja Bhakta Chara Pravinata Pararta Tapikarunyam Yasasarve Hteenama Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminita Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesa Shunyavadi Paschatyaresha Tarine Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 5th canto, chapter 14. The material world is the great forest of enjoyment. But are we really? Text number 25 says otherwise. Where are we? Text 25. Kvachich, kvachich. We're hearing this a lot in these chapters. Kvachich, sometimes, sometimes it's like this. Kvachich chasita vata dhyaneka didhaivika bhautikatmiyanam dashanam prativarnane kalpoduranta chintaya vishana aste. Word for word says, kvachit, sometimes, cha, also, shita vata adi, such as cold and strong wind. Aneka, various. Adidaivika, created by the demigods. Bhautika, adibhautika, created by other living beings. Atmiyanam, adhyatmika, created by the mind and body. Dashanam, of conditions of misery. Pratinivarane, in the counteracting. Akalpaha, unable. Duranta, very severe. Chintaya, by anxieties. Vishanaha, morose. Aste, he remains. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace. Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Prabhupada ki jai. Being unable to protect himself from the threefold miseries of material existence, the conditioned soul becomes very morose and lives a life of lamentation. These threefold miseries are miseries suffered by mental calamity at the hands of the demigods, such as freezing wind and scorching heat, miseries offered by other living entities, and miseries arising from the mind and body themselves. Report. The so-called happy materialistic person is constantly having to endure the threefold miseries of life, called Adidaivika, Adhyatmika, and Adibhautika. Actually, no one can counteract these threefold miseries. All three may assail one at one time, or one misery may be absent and the other present. Thus, the living entity is full of anxiety, fearing misery from one side or the other. The conditioned soul must be disturbed by at least one of these three miseries. There is no escape. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. There is no escape. We should put this on your refrigerator or on your bathroom mirror or something in quotations. There is no escape by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Om Jnana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Milidham Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Sva Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Param Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Shcha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Panamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Jadbharata is saying that sometimes we are unable to protect ourselves from the threefold miseries of material existence, and that therefore the conditioned soul becomes very morose and lives a life of lamentation. Sometimes. Prabhupada says a bit more clearly that there must be one misery present. The conditioned soul must be disturbed by at least one of these three miseries. There is no escape. Sounds like some sort of comic book villain. There is no escape. But Prabhupada saying this is actually the hero. And if we can just admit it, then maybe we can approach the solution to all miseries and the happiness which is not dependent on the body and mind, and that is Krishna consciousness. But so long as we're thinking, no, 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 I'll be able to skirt the demigods, dodge them here, do that Heisman roll over here. My body, I'll be able to manage my body and mind. I can mitigate those miseries, no problem. And the other living entities, I'll just avoid all of my enemies and be close to all my friends. Just, I got this plan to be happy in this material world, thwarting the demigods, my body and mind, and all living entities. So long as we think that I'm going to be able to pull this off, then we won't really approach Krishna. At least that's what Queen Kunti says, right? That someone who has given up everything else, then they can really call out your name with feeling. What was that verse? You all know the one I'm talking about? She says that one who has nothing, they can call out your name with real feeling. Oh, such a good verse. Hold on. Um, I don't remember. One who has nothing else. What is it? Anyway, I won't bore you with trying to find it, but Kunti says that for someone who has really given up everything else, then they can really call out the Lord's names with feeling, with like real affection, really calling out. But so long as we're thinking, no, 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 I can make happiness with my body, with my mind, and all the living entities around me, they'll become my friends. No problem. I found it. Namo kinchana vitaya nivritta guna vrittaye atmaramaya shantaya kayavalya pate. Oh, that's not the one. Yeah, no, that is the one. Akinchana vitaya. Namo kinchana vitaya. One who's has nothing else in this world. It's given up on everything else. And she says in the previous, akinchana gocharam, given up on everything else, totally exhausted with material existence. Then you can be approached with real feeling. Naivarhatyam avidatum vai. Tamakinchana gocharam. But here you are, we're thinking, I can make plans with my, oh, thank you, I can make plans with my body so that it'll still be giving me pleasure, and I can make plans with all the living entities, putting all of these ones in the category of friends and all of these ones in the categories of enemy. And that way I'll be able to get happiness from all the living entities around me. And the demigods owe it to me. Because anyway, I went to church once when I was a kid, and so everything should just work out really nicely for me. But Prabhupada's saying, no, there is no escape from the miseries of material existence. Fearing misery on one side or the other, we must be full of anxiety and live a life of lamentation. Now, for us devotees, because we are taking shelter of Krishna, we might forget really how bad it can be. We do have, to some degree, the shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. We have our attention fixed on something beyond the happiness and distress of this material world, to some degree, to varying degrees. We have our up days and our down days. But generally speaking, we may have forgotten just how bad it gets for people. And that's why Sankirtan is so important, so we can remember just how effective is Krishna consciousness and how much it has changed our lives, such that we're no longer suffering a life of lamentation, being very morose. We kind of forget about it sometimes, when we're cloistered in our spaces where we're with other devotees all the time. Yeah, there's some troubles caused by other devotees, but it's all trouble in the pursuit of Krishna's devotional service. Generally, it's a type of ecstasy that we just have to come to appreciate. But without interacting with people who know nothing about Krishna, we might actually forget just how powerful and transformative is the force of Krishna consciousness. how much we've been relieved from the miseries of material existence, we can actually forget. I can tell you, if you're interested, that people suffer so much. I mean, of course, many of you know, if you have interactions, especially deep interactions with people of this material world, they suffer so much. Almost every day, we've got some person who comes along to our center just crying, literally just crying because they cannot handle their life. Just so overwhelmed with their work, with their relationships, with the state of the world that we're in. Just absolutely overwhelmed and floored by it, become incapacitated and practically useless because of the suffering that they experience. And we're talking about people suffering mostly on the mental level. What to speak of those who live in such unfortunate existences, like in war or some sort of famine? I mean, that still exists in this world. Slavery, it's still very much the in thing, despite all of our heralding capitalist economies. If our capitalist economy still depends on the slavery economy, it's not really capitalist, is it? As I've said so many times, there are more slaves now than there have ever been in human history, at least recent human history. So we like to think that we've moved on from the slavery economies and the feudalist economies of the past, but actually there's more slavery now. But we just got to have our cheap stuff. So for such people, I mean, the misery is obvious. It's very apparent. And, you know, people of the world try to do what they can to resolve that, to fix that. But even people in the Western world, developed nations where there isn't such external suffering, still there is no escape from the miseries of the body, the mind, the other living entities, and from the demigods. Here's a little indication, some statistics to just give us some idea of how much people suffer. According to the National Science Foundation, who contributed to an article in Psychology Today, says that the average person has about 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day. And of those, 80% are negative. And 95% of their thoughts are exactly the same repetitive thoughts as the day before, and 80% negative. Yikes. Yikes. I mean, I see this all the time. I see this all the time when we have our discussion groups at the Bhakti Yoga Center. Mostly people have negative thoughts, and everyone under the age of 50 has absolutely nothing positive to say about the future. There's absolutely nothing to look forward to in the future. I mean, just try to consider that for a second. Young people, they cannot think of anything positive in the future. And so the suffering on the mental level is very high. There's a lot of existential crisis because of it, which is a great opportunity for us to be there for them. But the depression and the misery and the mental disability as a result is just off the charts, really is off the charts. I've given so many statistics in the past, and I can repeat some of them, that just at Penn State alone, 2/3 of students who attend Penn State have used mental health resources owing to, some sort of turmoil and pain that they're going through. 2/3. Talking about 45,000 students. So 2/3 of them, somebody do the math. And the other 1/3 probably just too depressed to even go to the office and take advantage of those facilities. I mean, the suffering is just overwhelming. 80% of thoughts negative, according to the National Science Foundation. Just absolutely overwhelming. We might say that, well, it's not my problem. People are just weak. They're just getting the results of their karma. Sometimes us religious types, we find justifications for withdrawing ourselves from the world. There's generally two types of religious people. I heard Devamrita Swami lecturing about this. There's the There's the salvationists, those who want to save the world. And then there's the escapists, those who, well, it's not my problem. I'm out of here. I'm leaving this place. I've got my consciousness fixed on the better tomorrow in the next life when I go to heaven. And everybody else who's burning in hell is not my concern. So let us check our tendency to become escapists and to just consider that it's not my problem. These people suffer as a result of their own karma. It's true. They have to get what's coming to them. Go through many lifetimes of this, then maybe perhaps they'll get a chance to become Krishna conscious some other day. But it's just justice built into the material environment. This is true. All of this is entirely true. But we have to ask ourselves, do we want to suffer our karma? By the grace of the Lord and his devotees, we've been saved from the karmic fate that we were owed. Should we not want the same for others? Should we not want to also relieve people from the suffering that we were due and that we've experienced in this lifetime, that maybe we've forgotten about because of being engaged in Krishna service? Maybe we've forgotten just how much suffering there was. By the grace of the devotees, we've been relieved from the bulk of it, at least. Should we want the same for others? It's a very lazy perspective to just say, well, it's their own damn fault that people suffer now so immensely. It's their own fault. It's because they voted for the person that I don't like, or it's because they were born in the wrong type of body. They should have been born a male like me. That's their problem. It was their own fault that they didn't try to overthrow some politician who's now put them in this calamitous situation, or it's their own fault for not getting the right kind of degree. We could just make so many excuses as to why people suffer and place the blame squarely on themselves. And it might even be true in most situations. It might really be true that people deserve to suffer. But you know what? You got to look in the mirror and remember, well, I also deserve to suffer. But the devotees saved me from that. So shouldn't I do something for them also? Srila Prabhupada says something so compassionate in the Adi Leela of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And it's worth me taking a moment to look it up, to just really change our perspective about the suffering condition of people in general. I think it's in text number 76. Very important text. Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Eva Kevalam, Kolonasti, Evanasti, Evanasti, Evagatyanita. And the purport, Srila Prabhupada says one sentence, which I'm just begging all you dear devotees to please deeply contemplate and consider. He says, in the age of Kali, there are many faults. We can just write a list miles long about why everybody suffers, and how it's their own damn fault. Prabhupada says, in the age of Kali, there are many faults. And then he says, for people are subjected to many miserable conditions. Such a simple sentence, but it strikes me as something so significant about transitioning from being an escapist to being a salvationist. Recognizing that there are so many faults. People are suffering so much because they are subjected to many miserable conditions. In the age of Kali, actually, no one has fault. The soul is by nature Satchid Ananda. It's by nature full of love. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhikabanoy. That's actually the nature of every living entity. Not to be angry, to be frustrated, lusty, envious, greedy, insane. That's not the nature of the living entity. It's a fault they have because they are subjected to miserable conditions. You should try to see that despite the suffering that the world is going through now, People can become Krishna conscious and be relieved of suffering. I mean, genuinely, not just like, oh, yeah, we've got the power, or I'm in the right and everyone else is in the wrong. It's not my problem. I've been saved. Testify. Prabhupada's giving us a perspective here of the salvationist, one who wants to save others. There are so many faults. Yes, there are so many problems. Everybody's just horrible. Yes. Everything's just falling apart. Yes. And this person has caused so much suffering for everybody. Yes. And you can blame these people over here. You can blame this thing that happened and make all sorts of excuses to just not give a damn. But here Prabhupada's saying the fault is because people are subjected to miserable conditions. Our theology teaches that the living entity is pure. At their core, their most essential quality is that they are lovers of God. That's our theology. That's our perspective that we're taught by Srila Prabhupada. And just as someone has helped us to be relieved of the miserable conditions of material existence, we should similarly help others. Prabhupada finishes this sentence saying, in the age of Kali, there are many faults, for people are subjected to many miserable conditions. Yet in this age, there is one great benediction. Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, one can be freed from all material contamination and thus be elevated to the spiritual world. This is his commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam 12, chapter 3, text 51. Famous verse, Kaler dhoshanide rajan asti heko mahan guna kirtanareva krishnasya mukta sangha parambrajat. Doshanide, that in the age of Kali, we're in an ocean of problems. I mean, have you noticed? Doshanide, not an ocean of dosha, the yummy, delicious South Indian pancake. We're in an ocean of dosha, faults, problems, suffering. There's just, I mean, just turn on the news. Don't turn on the news, please. You all know. Even if we try to avoid the news, you just hear it all the time. Every day, some stupid, miserable thing. But astiheko mahanguna, there's only one good thing going on. There's one good thing. It's like being in a sailboat. I once sailed through the Tasman Sea for 7 days. It was horrible. But in a sailboat, you can have all this incredible technology. You know, the hull is crafted from fiberglass and steel reinforced, and you have these masts which actually have within them all sorts of different cables and things for hoisting the sail in different positions, and you have multiple sails, and you have your GPS systems, you have your water desalination systems, you got all sorts of stuff in the sailboat. But the only thing that's going to take you from A to B is the only thing that you can't put on the boat, and that's the wind. So similarly, we have a very technologically advanced society. We got everything going for us except for the wind of the holy names of Krishna. You cannot build that in any factory. It cannot be resolved with any amount of psychological journals or in some university class where people are talking about the problems of material existence. In fact, I'm pretty sure they've stopped talking about the problems of material existence in university classes. Humanities courses are just dropping from universities all over this country. Just completely dropped humanities courses. Like, what's the point? What's the point? We have one girl who comes to our center, Simone. She's actually getting a degree in philosophy. There's so few. And she was saying that there's just very few people attending, obviously, and that there's very few classes, and that there's very few universities that even offer philosophy degrees anymore. Nobody's talking about the problems of material existence anymore. All they're talking about is technological advancements, just hoping that some sort of technological salvation is coming just around the corner. I don't have time and I don't want to get into it, but there's this, another psychotic billionaire out of Silicon Valley, one of my old neighbors, and he wrote this techno-optimist manifesto, just really showing just the madness of the day and how his hope for unfettered, unregulated technology is going to solve all the world's problems, even though it hasn't done it yet. Very, very soon it's going to. But the way he wrote it really give some scary insight into the minds of some of these people who are developing these things and influencing our governments. So people have just given up on trying to solve the problems of material existence in the universities. It's just not even something to contemplate anymore. Only the devotees have the real solution. Kirtanad eva krishnasya mukta sangaparam brajet. Simply by chanting Krishna's names, by associating with Krishna, one is liberated from material existence and is no longer subjected to the threefold miseries of material existence. Dear devotees, do not forget we have that experience. Let's not forget, just because we've been around for a while and then, we're thinking about, well, this devotee said that thing to me, that devotee said this thing to me. We can forget just how much we've been relieved of material suffering by chanting Krishna's names. It's very important for us to remember the transformative power of Krishna consciousness. And we can remember very easily if we make an attempt to coalesce and converse with those people who are very much entrenched in suffering from Adidaivika, Adibhautika, and Adhyatmika. Not only will it fill us with the conviction and the power of Krishna consciousness, but dare I say, we might even relieve someone from that suffering by sharing Krishna consciousness with them. There's no solution coming from all the Silicon Valley think tanks. It's not happening. It hasn't happened yet. It's not going to happen soon. Solution is God consciousness, Krishna consciousness. So let us look at our fellow man, recognize that even though, yes, they deserve to suffer the result of their karma, and even though, yes, they have so many faults, and even though, yes, they may have voted for the wrong team. Nowadays, we just make it as simple as that. It's blue or red. Everyone else you're at fault. You're on the wrong side of this team, this sport. And even though, yes, they may have voted incorrectly, even though, yes, they are meat eaters, even though, yes, they are fornicators, even though, yes, they are drug users and abusers, yes, even though they deserve to suffer, still we should consider what Srila Prabhupada said here. They have many faults because they're subjected to miserable conditions. That part is as clear as day. Recognizing that as such, we should become salvationists, wanting to help, wanting to do something to alleviate that suffering, not just dismissing them, condemning them to their fate. Let's do something to relieve that suffering. Let us reach out and help them just like someone has helped us. Hare Krishna. There's a question sent in the chat anonymously. It says, Hare Krishna, thank you. I have a question. How do you not let all the suffering, negativity, and problems get to you with all the interaction you have with the students at Penn State? How does one be compassionate to others without absorbing themselves so much that they become affected by it? Thank you, dear anonymous question asker. I once asked this to His Holiness Janananda Goswami Maharaj, who doesn't come to America so often. But those of you who do know him, you know that he does Harinam all the time, just like nonstop. Despite getting on in years, he's just always in Harinam. It's such conviction that people need to hear the holy names of Krishna. He's always out there. And I asked him, how do we develop compassion? He was talking about this thing, came to our ashram. I said, how do we develop compassion? If I don't feel the compassion, how do we develop compassion? And he said, act compassionately, and you'll feel the compassion. Meaning you got to get out there. You got to do the act of compassion. That is Sankirtan. Whether we're doing Harinam, giving them the holy names, giving them prasadam, giving them Srila Prabhupada's books, or creating an environment whereby they can come and hear and chant about Krishna. We make that action first, and then I guarantee you, you'll start to feel the compassion because people will open up and tell you how much they're suffering. Especially if you do door-to-door book distribution, which I know is not very common anymore. Even I don't do it anymore, but when you go to someone's door and they open the door and just give you the window into their world, and they're not like they're on the street or in the shops or at the workplace where everybody puts on whatever mask that they need to wear for that particular time. But when people just open their door and you see right into their life, unsheltered, when their guard isn't up, you just see how much suffering people are going through. They'll tell you, and you cannot help but develop some compassion for what people endure in their lives, the miserable conditions that they're subjected to. But we don't know if we don't reach out and actually try. We won't know. We'll forget. We might even start to think, maybe I'm suffering even more than the non-devotees. Yeah, that's it. It's because of my Krishna consciousness. If I could just let go, if I could just let it all out and just become some sense enjoyer, then I won't suffer so much. We can forget that actually we've got it so good. We've got it so good. We don't have the existential crisis, the purposelessness, the solitude, the loneliness that people experience. We don't have any of that. I don't know of any lonely devotees. I mean, there's always devotees to associate with. I don't know of any bored devotees. There's always so much to do in Krishna's service. People suffer so much, and we forget. If you act compassionately, that means do the Sankirtan. Just do it. Then you'll see so many reasons. They will tell you. You cannot help but grow in compassion. His Holiness Devamrita Swami said compassion is one of the strongest spiritual emotions. It's one of the strongest spiritual emotions. Even Srimati Radharani is up there. She's not like, well, I'm an escapist. I don't have to worry about that. I've got all sorts of other things going on. I'm enjoying with Krishna. Even Srimati Radharani is feeling the compassion for those who are not connected to Krishna. In fact, that is what Sankirtana means. We're exhibiting the mood of Srimati Radharani as displayed to us by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we need to go out there and talk to them, and they'll tell you, and then the compassion will grow. How do we not let all the suffering and negativity and problems, how do I not let it get to me? It does get to me. It gets to me a lot. And that's why I just keep trying to share Krishna consciousness. It really gets to me. Hare Krishna, Dasya Prema Prabhu. I see your digital hand up. I would love to hear something from Dasya Prema. If you're still there, maybe he's gone. Maybe he's left and gone to the toilet. Who knows? Oh, there he is.
Hare Krishna. So I'm wondering, what am I wondering? I guess in like preaching, and I guess the hesitation for me at least is like, it seems that maybe it kind of requires like a lot of a structure, or like this term, it takes a village to raise a child, like that. Um, so I don't know. Just life seems so busy, and seems like some of our centers, there's not a kind of like a formal structure to plug someone into. So it's like you're just, at least I'm like a little insecure about the whole experience that someone's going to get, because it's like, am I going to be able to provide that whole experience for someone when I have, I'm engaged in this service, that service, and yes, if you could address that. Just obviously, a formal bhakti program is the best, but when there's lack of that, then it's like, okay, am I going to take up that whole responsibility myself? It's
Why not?
so that's my question. Sorry.
I think you know so well, Prabhu, but I'm happy to share again that we can't wait for perfection. We can't let perfection be the enemy of good enough. We're talking about an emergency scenario here. As Srila Prabhupada says in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, he gives the analogy that if your neighbor's house is burning down, it's not like there's some perfectly nice, you don't write a letter, all sorts of poetic language, asking them very kindly to please exit your domicile. The house is burning down. It's an emergency. You just try your best. Even if you have to smash a window, you get in there and say, hey, the house is burning down. Get out. we just try our best. And that's what affects people. If we're really sincere and just trying to connect, just trying to be a spiritual support for someone, then they're affected by it. It's not like, the amazing facility that you have. Some facility can help, but that's not necessary. Srila Prabhupada didn't have amazing facility. He sat in a park, demonstrating to us all, you don't need anything. He's made it clear. You don't need anything. What you need is to actually care about people. That's the part that you need. It's the part that you can't arrange with any amount of facility. I mean, making the facility shows that we really care. It could show that. I think that in general, if ISKCON really cared about the suffering people, we'd make more facility to do something for them rather than just for us to enjoy prasadam. But that's social commentary I'm not supposed to get into at this moment. People are so lonely. They're so lonely. They're so disconnected. I mean, they're already suffering from loneliness. And then this COVID thing just took it to the next level or a couple of levels up. People are so isolated. They're so lonely. They're so distraught. And if they just have a relationship with anyone who cares about them, it means so much and it can make them Krishna conscious, even if we're not perfect in explaining the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, even though we don't have the nicest, most attractive facilities. If you just care about someone, to have a connection with them, it affects them so much. It's worth more than $1 million invested in some nice facility. And that any of us can do. Any of us can do. And it's so easy to stay in contact with someone now. We're all online. Everybody's connected. We just have to actually care. You have to really care. And then they will be affected. So let's not think that, I don't have some expertise. Do you have love? Have you been loved by devotees? Then that's the qualification that you need. Have you been loved by devotees? You've been supported by devotees. Have they helped you to grow in Krishna consciousness? Then boom, you're qualified to do it for others. It's called parampara. I mean, I stuff up all the time. And there's so many times I was thinking, I could have done better, didn't connect with this person well enough, really trying to help this person to be inspired in Krishna consciousness. I'm often feeling like this regret or anxiety that I didn't do well enough, or I need to do more. But we can't let any of that stop us from trying. The world is on fire. People are so isolated. They're so distraught. You just got to reach out in any way that you can. Hare Krishna. Well, thank you for that wonderful question, Dasi Prema. Oh, some commentary from Jiva Pandit. He knows the Jivas very well. He's the Pandit of the Jivas. He says, he's quoting SBK Swami. Is that what's his name? This new Swami? I can't remember his name. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So that's my whole point. We should remember how much devotees have cared for us and then care for someone else. It's not some charisma, it's not some expertise, it's not having a whole lot of great resources. It's just about caring, just caring about anybody. Everyone is suffering. Just like anybody you meet, you can make some connection and try to inspire them in Krishna consciousness. They'll see the difference in you and they will be curious about it, at least. But we have to care. If we don't care, we're just one of the escapists that, well, I'm saved. I'm going to Goloka Vrindavan and to hell with everybody else. It's their own damn fault. Then what can be done? Hare Krishna. Oh, Tarika Prabhu also has this digital hand raised. Oh, we're over time. I'm sorry. I think we're supposed to stop at 7:45. We have to finish. My bad. So I guess Drat. Tarika Prabhu, you're so youthful at heart. You're a real cowherd boy. Drat. I mean, I guess so. I don't see the Lords. I don't see Srila Prabhupada. I don't hear Dhammadarastakam. So maybe you do have a few moments, Tarek, or maybe not. I don't know. I'm just,
Excellent.
yeah.
I'll take it. I'll go for it. So, yeah, so many things. I don't know where to begin. There's never enough time. Very frustrating.
Well,
Regarding,
I've got work in 7 minutes, so I do have to at least put that limitation on you. Hare Krishna.
oh, I can go on without you.
Okay. It's true.
Any, anyway, so facilities, with regards to facilities, yeah, we don't require any facility, as you astutely pointed out. Srila Prabhupada demonstrated that with even no facility, we can just sit down anywhere and chant Hare Krishna. But Srila Prabhupada also set the example of establishing facilities. He has said that we don't require any facility, that we can just sit down under a tree and chant Hare Krishna. But he said we have these temples. We have established temples um, um, because people needed a place to find us, a place to come where they can meet devotees and hear from them, a place where they can feel comfortable, something, some basic facilities to make it comfortable. And Srila Prabhupada tried to make it comfortable for people. In India, initially, our facilities were very Spartan, very austere. He wanted facilities that were a little bit more on a Western standard, so that even devotees would feel comfortable and not put off. Tried to make it easy for people. Anyway, so and also with regards to facilities, something that we discovered in the late 70s and yeah, mid to late 70s, we discovered one of the most effective ways to make devotees is to establish facilities for them. The most important item of facility, we would have bhakta quarters to make it comfortable for them, a library for them, and all kinds of comforts to make it easy. But the most important facility was providing the guidance for them. So the most qualified individual amongst the devotees in any given temple would be assigned the task of caring for the bhaktas, a full-time bhakta leader, someone whose only job was to look after guests when they come, people with questions, and those who have come to stay, caring for them full time, and providing for them the pure philosophy of Krishna consciousness. When that's established, then Krishna just sends those individuals who are ready for that, and they come in droves. So once we established bhakti programs, we began making devotees in incredible numbers. I mean, just hundreds of devotees were coming at the time. Also worth mentioning in this connection that Srila Prabhupada numerous times between starting in the early 70s, very early 70s, I think was the first occasion I remember him doing this. He put the brakes on the outreach, explaining that we have enough people. We have drawn enough individuals from from outside. What we need is to boil the milk. Which meant that the existing devotees, we have to do a better job of providing for those who have actually taken up Krishna consciousness. We have to do a better job of maintaining them and training them, and we have to elevate ourselves and the other devotees to the highest standard, because he felt that that the standard was not adequate, not sufficient, that devotees needed to improve. They needed to apply themselves more diligently to hearing and chanting, to studying in Shastra, and becoming more adept at preaching Krishna consciousness effectively. He wanted that very much, and so there are numerous times when he instructed the movement in general to slow down, back off with the outreach, and shift attention to the cultivation of the devotees that we already have. So that's also there. And these things need to go on actually simultaneously. Outreach, and simultaneously we have to cultivate ourselves. But one of the failures of our movement at various stages has been that we put tremendous energy and effort into bringing people to Krishna consciousness. Once they come, then they're neglected. They're expected to just fend for themselves, and we cease giving them attention. We take tremendous pains, give them a lot of attention initially to draw them, and then we just kind of cut them loose, and they flounder and sometimes go away for want of sufficient attention. So Srila Prabhupada felt that was a great fault, and it was something that he addressed on numerous occasions. It's very important that not just simply that we devote ourselves to trying to rescue the fallen conditioned souls, but that those who have come, we've got to take care of them, for God's sake. Don't neglect them. They also need attention at every stage. Devotees, don't neglect the devotees. The fact that they, have come and have begun chanting Hare Krishna and so on, that doesn't mean that now they no longer need our help and attention. At every point, we should provide support for one another. Everyone has to be elevated to the highest standard in Krishna consciousness. That's what Srila Prabhupada wanted. And I could go on at length about some other things, but I don't, we're really kind of out of time. But there is a nice verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, which should come as no surprise, because all the verses in Srimad Bhagavatam are nice verses. And with regards to the three kleshas, right? These are known as kleshas, defined as sometimes as trouble, sometimes as miseries or distresses. Srila Prabhupada uses different words to describe kleshas, and the kleshas are discussed extensively all over Srimad Bhagavatam. It's one of those recurrent themes. So three kleshas we have: Adhyatma, Adhibhavika, Adhidaivika, and which everyone knows well, symbolized by the trident of Durga, right? She's got this weapon with 3 points, which symbolize the three material miseries. And but those miseries are actually kind of a blessing in disguise. They serve as impetus to seek a solution. So in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 8th chapter, there's the story of the prostitute Pingala, and she says in text 38, Maivams your manda magyaya klesha nirveda hetavaha yenanu bandhanam nirtya purusha shamam richati. Means a person who has developed detachment can give up the bondage of material society, friendship, and love. And a person who undergoes great suffering gradually becomes, out of hopelessness, detached and indifferent to the material world. Thus, due to my great suffering, such detachment awoke in my heart. Yet how could I have undergone such merciful suffering if I were actually unfortunate? Therefore, I am in fact fortunate and have received the mercy of the Lord. He must somehow or other be pleased with me. So she felt that her suffering was actually a blessing and we can see it that way. That's sometimes people will talk about looking at the bright side, and that's the proper application of the philosophy of bright side consciousness. Otherwise, just trying to be happy in a miserable state, which the material world is, it's a miserable place. And we should never forget that. So just looking at the bright side is a mistake. It's a loser's philosophy. You're in a miserable condition, and you need to effect a solution. Looking at the bright side is merely a process of deluding yourself, convincing yourself that somehow or other the situation is not that bad. Because look at this, here's this bright spot, there's this bright spot. No, actually, you're suffering unspeakably, and you need to effect a solution. And your bright side philosophy is only cultivating complacency. But so real bright side, the proper application of this bright side idea is to see how this suffering is actually incentivizing my release from material bondage. That's how it worked for Pingala. And geez, I could get into some other things, but we've gone so far over time, so I'm just gonna shut up and go away. Yasodeva has already disappeared, but I want to thank him for a nice glass. Hare Krishna to one and all. Hare Krishna.